Good afternoon, Vandal fans. Welcome to another edition of Fourth and Downtown. I'm your host, Josh Grissom. I'm joined with Luis the Godfather Torres here this Friday. Some big news regarding Idaho football. President Staben announced that the Vandal football team will join the Big Sky Conference in the 2018 season. We're going to present our thoughts on the announcement. We're also going to talk the first round of the women's Big Sky tournament. As far as tennis, the Vandals scored a big 4-1 victory over Eastern Washington. And then we'll also talk a little bit about some of the recruits added to the track and field program. But Luis, obviously, first off, we have to start with the news. The Vandal football program will be joining the Big Sky Conference in 2018. We kind of expected this when we talked to Chuck Staben throughout the spring, but the fact that he officially announced it, I think, was kind of a surprise to a number of Vandal fans. I know there's been a deep division among Idaho alumni, fans, and students as to a position on the matter. Luis, what is your current take on the situation right now?
It's simply black. Yesterday was Black Thursday for a lot of people's eyes, mainly from the scholars and the boosters. They were not happy about the decision at all, and because they know that dropping, because they're now forever by technicality since 1982, they have the stigma forever as the first FBS team to drop to the FCS, which nobody would really want to hear. It is kind of like a torn opinion. On one hand, you have people that are ecstatic to see finally Idaho versus Montana. People think they're going to be great right off the bat. It's like, no, that's not going to be the case. It's not going to be like right away. We're not going to be like the big team overnight. It's going to take a while. It's not until 2018 for crying out loud at this point. My thoughts about it is I'm severely torn about the whole opinion. I understand from both sides because one, as a writer, as a journalist, the biggest concern that I got out of it was which women's sports team will be dropped, because there was the whole stigma that there's going to be a women's sports being dropped. At this moment, we don't know if it's going to happen, or we don't even know at this time that it's going to be 100% sure no women's sports is going to be dropped.
Well, here's the situation with that for everybody who's unfamiliar with the situation. The FBS allows 85 football scholarships per program. The Big Sky Conference and the FCS reduced that number to 63. You can only offer 63 football scholarships in the FCS. And now that results in a loss of 22 scholarships. Now, Title IX legislation involving athletic scholarships was initially created in order for women to have the same equal opportunity as men in regard to athletic scholarships. So I think the current legislation right now says based on the gender at the school, there needs to be an equal proportion of scholarships to reflect the gender proportions of the university as a whole. So let's say, for instance, that Idaho is 50-50, 50% men, 50% women. Then athletic scholarships have to be exactly equal between the two. So let's hypothetically say there's 200 scholarships on both sides, so 200 for men, 200 for women. The fact that the men's side now loses 22 scholarships means that the women will have to drop 22 scholarships somehow, in some way, in order to meet Title IX legislation, so that way there's not a favoritism of any gender, men or women, on campus. So I know the easiest way that it was proposed was for a sport to be dropped at the University of Idaho, and that's what a lot of people assumed, and particularly the swim and dive team looked to be like the program that might be cut. But yesterday in the press conference, Idaho Athletic Director Rob Spears said that the university would not drop a program at all, that they had some way that they were going to approach it. He said, quote, "As I communicated with the president, we have no plans at this time of eliminating any sports at the University of Idaho," end quote. I think the way that they might approach it is to start reducing the number of scholarships offered. I feel like with the seniors who leave the respective programs at this point in time, instead of passing that scholarship off to an incoming freshman, they will instead just not offer a scholarship to incoming players and instead just recruit more walk-ons. But Spear would not detail his plan as far as that was concerned. And I found that a very unique and not troubling, but an interesting aspect of the press conference that I would hope to get more information about in the future.
Yeah, it's why right now that we can hope that's going to be the case because we don't want to see a sport drop as a result. I know a lot of people don't really care who gets dropped, who stays, and who's not. Nobody, and that seems to be the vibe to some people. But in all honesty, it's like I said, it's not good. We're gonna have to wait and find out how we do now and how we're gonna do down the road. People expect we're gonna be hot shot right away at contenders in the Big Sky, but you have a long ways to go. And by that point, Linehan will be gone, and also the other key components will be gone by then. So we don't know what kind of team we're going to have. So the recruitment aspect is going to be absolutely vital going into that 2018, which is not till another 2 seasons. But right now, I'm very torn. I see both sides of the argument, but it's a couple years from now, and I'm just going to only say this once and once only. Just we'll have to figure out. We're not going to have like instant success overnight. That's all I'm going to say about the whole thing going to the Big Sky. Who knows? I may be wrong, but
No, and I know a lot of people were thinking that with the news of the announcement, a number of recruits will begin to look at joining another FBS program. But Staben said he was contacted by the NCAA in regard to the transfer rules for athletes within the football program, and he said yesterday during the press conference, quote, "The NCAA has assured us that normal transfer rules still apply for our current student athletes. We anticipate those student athletes will stay here and will want to stay here to participate in the great football program that Coach Petrino runs and the academics they are engaged in," end quote. If student athletes aren't allowed to transfer from the University of Idaho football team, that proposes it's a unique dilemma for athletes, and I'm not quite sure if the athletes would be able to file any grievance on their part, because when they signed up for the program, they signed up to play for an FBS school, and now that they're going to be in the FCS, I feel like that's a change of what was promised them, especially with the reduction of scholarships. And on a note with the scholarships, Spears said that the university has a plan in place so that in 2018, when Idaho joins the Big Sky Conference, they will be at 63 scholarships. So they will be eligible for the playoffs. I don't know how they're going to go about doing that, but I thought that was a very unique takeaway from the press conference itself.
it's an interesting point of view where they're going to do whatever it takes to be eligible, but in a lot of people's eyes, they just really aren't happy about it. Just going to have to just think about it, but I don't think they're going to change their thoughts anytime soon. It's just been a huge uproar. If you talk to a certain group of people, you'll have different answers, different opinions. Like I've heard around campus, there's a group of people that's like saying that we should be in the FCS, so we have a purpose to actually win games on a regular, rather than get our what kicked by all these major teams that we're spending millions of dollars or earning at the same time, like build revenue. Is you have a lot of opinions, right? Like I said, I'm severely torn about this whole ordeal. It's right now is just gonna focus on the 2016 season, and that's about as far as I'm gonna go with that.
Now, you made a reference to revenue games, and there was 5 games in particular that against Power 5 opponents that had huge payouts for the Vandals, and that was if they were an FBS team. Now, you're looking at games against Florida, LSU, Missouri, and then 2 road games at Indiana in back-to-back years. The payout of each matchup was over $1 million per game. Now, there's some clauses in those contracts that allows a team to opt out if there's a change of conference affiliation or something, but there was some fines if the programs are to cut those games entirely, and we're not sure what the direction will be for that. Spears said that the university's already had conversations with those schools and been very upfront about the situation, and that they would adjust the schedule accordingly. Worst case, Idaho will make off with a decent amount of money from the teams canceling the games as a whole, but the loss of revenue from these money games is certainly going to be a big factor, especially during the first years with the conference when we're in the FCS.
Yeah, right now there's a lot. I think those teams that were playing, like you mentioned, like Florida and Indiana, are looking at this news. It's like, why did we? Maybe in their eyes, like, do we want to play them still? Is it worth coming down? Worth for them to be here with less money and all that? It's just a lot of money talks. There's a lot of politics involved regarding whether or not certain teams will play Idaho, or they're just going to flat out drop it because of this announcement. Who knows?
Yeah, and another thing about the move as a whole, I kind of watched Paul Petrino during the press conference yesterday. It was interesting to watch the demeanor of athletic director Rob Spear, president Chuck Staben, and football coach Paul Petrino when they walked into the conference or into the press conference. Staben was pretty upbeat and seemed optimistic. Spear seemed fairly grim about the entire situation. A number of his statements were very short and concise, and he didn't really expand upon much of anything. Although I was very impressed with head coach Paul Petrino and his delivery during the press conference. I know the move has got to be bad news for him personally, but he seemed very excited and optimistic, and that's what you want to be presented during a press conference. Obviously, you might not feel that way about the move and the program as a whole, but he did a very good job of displaying, general excitement and endorsement of the move, which was good for him. Good to see that. I just don't know if he will still be with the program in 2018. Obviously, his contract right now ends in 2017. He did state that he will be excited to transition with the team, but of course that remains up in the air. We have yet to see how that will play out. Probably based on the success of the Idaho football team next year if they reach a bowl game. But I called Big Sky Commissioner Doug Fullerton Tuesday, and what was really interesting about my conversation with him is that at the time on Tuesday, he said he had not heard any word at all from the university about an official decision. And I had heard from sources within the communications and athletics department, separate sources, that a decision had been made. And so that initially had me question whether it was the Big Sky Conference or whether the University of Idaho had figured out some sort of FBS routes. So I called up Commissioner Fullerton and asked him kind of about the situation. He said he had not heard a word about it, but then he discussed the Idaho Vandal football team as a whole and its position if they accepted the invitation in the Big Sky Conference. And one of the key things about the move is he said the addition of the Idaho football program might allow the Big Sky Conference to split into two separate leagues. Right now they currently possess 13 football members. The addition of the Vandals would create 14 teams, and he said that it might be able to split into two 7-team leagues to be able to play for two automatic berths in the FCS playoffs instead of just one reward for 13 or 14 programs, which I thought was a very, good for the Big Sky Conference that they got the Vandals. I can see why they've been pushing this for quite some time.
Yeah, and obviously every other sport we're in the Big Sky except for swim and dive, which is in the Western Athletic Conference. So in some people's eyes, that's why it kind of fit into the mold that if we have every sport except for two that is in the Big Sky, and if you have an open invitation, which has been brought up for quite a while, that you have to Idaho that the Big Sky will certainly invite you into the football conference, and now they are. So it's kind of been interesting to hear all this aspects, like the fact that Fulton was not aware until like pretty much last minute about what's going on is kind of surprising when Big Sky was the one that had like the open door for Idaho to arrive.
And what was also surprising regarding this press conference is that Staben said the university did not request a deadline extension on the invitation from the Big Sky Conference. I know Fullerton said before that the May 4th deadline was kind of a soft deadline and that they could always figure out a contract extension if need, or sorry, not contract extension, an invitation extension if need be. But Staben said the other day that the program, and the university did not ask for a contract extension. They just felt it was in the best interest of the program. And I know that he said, I'm trying to find the exact quote right now about the program, but he said essentially, I'm going to paraphrase it right now, that the University of Idaho had a guaranteed acceptance into the Big Sky Conference if they took the offer. He said the Big Sky was looking at other potential options for the conference. I don't know how true or how valid that statement was, or what other programs the Big Sky would be interested in, but he said if he felt it was the best interest to take that acceptance when it was guaranteed right now instead of trying to delay it, which I was a little surprised by. I don't know how you felt about it, Luis.
I really don't know how to describe it quite well, to be honest, that the Big Sky was just looking to find options, and now they're able to do it right now. It's just, right now, as time goes by, as months go by, I think more answers will be more clear, and right now it just seems to be a blurred line for me right now after everything that just went down yesterday on Black Thursday in many people's eyes.
Now, Staben confirmed reports that the University of Idaho had hired a consultant firm to review potential options for the Vandal football program as a whole. He said that the results were consistent with what they had received in the past. He also said that the University of Idaho's prestige and relevance would be complemented by our football program, not defined by it. Powerful words, and I feel like it is addressing the Vandal Scholarship Fund boosters who have talked about FBS status as being instrumental in our relevance and kind of our reputation around the state of Idaho.
And that's where all the anger has come from, because they understand that there's a lot of these things on the line, and now the fact that the scholarships will be cut, a lot of people have been frustrated that how they're going to support a team or a school to kind of get them growing if they're going to essentially, in their eyes and their view, demote themselves, or in the word of soccer, relegate themselves to the FCS. It's just right now they just are confused and like questioning why they made this move to begin with. They know like football brings a lot of revenue in their eyes, and they bring money just to get the program stronger and stronger after what looked like a promising season last year, and going into 2016 seems like they're hungry for a bowl game.
Yeah, and I feel like this move is unfortunate given the fact that the Vandals are appearing to show some good signs of growth and progression within the football program itself. This is following a 4-8 quote-unquote breakout season for the program, where they almost were bowl eligible if they had just been able to keep back-to-back 24 and 23-point leads against Sunbelt opponents. Unfortunately, they weren't able to, but I feel like that might have definitely changed the entire situation as a whole. But as of right now, the Vandals will be transitioning to join the Big Sky Conference in 2018. Some big news there, and lots of opinions, lots of stances. I do see both sides, and as a fan, I can't quite describe how I feel. It's a mixture of disappointment, but also some acceptance, and knowing that we will be regional again in the Northwest. I think it's a good thing for our program. But a huge part of campus life at any university is the football team. You know, you watch games and you hear of programs like Ohio State, Florida, Alabama, and you just know, football is such a huge part of the life there. And I feel like this move kind of reduces the impact of sports within the Moscow community, just because football used to be the biggest thing here. But I guess we'll just have to see how it plays out in the future. Hopefully the team will remain competitive. There's some very good programs in the Big Sky Conference, Eastern Washington being one of them. I know they put up, I think it was 46 points against Oregon last year. Portland State beat Washington State, shocked them in Pullman. So these are no easy programs at all in the Big Sky Conference. Success is not guaranteed.
No, that's why I mentioned it's not going to be like we're coming here, we're going to be the contender. It says look at Eastern Washington, for example. For in the early part of the decade, they were like the best team in the FCS. They won like multiple championships, national championships in their division, and now is Portland State pulling the upset. It's like those two teams are going to be the ones to keep an eye on. Those are like the powerhouses of Big Sky, and they have it because they were able to come into competing with an FBS team and backed it up and pull some wins, like Eastern Washington a few years ago against Oregon State, if I recall. And they almost, I believe, could have beaten Washington, if I remember, a while back. But no, right now the only thing I see is that from a game perspective, is that likewise and most likely Idaho versus Montana, which we have not seen since 2003, happen in the near future. That's like the only spark of having one of the major rivalries back, since we're no longer playing Boise State. Montana, which seems to be in fine terms, so it's like right now that's the only major rivalry if you're into that kind of stuff. But there's no guarantee of success overnight, and we don't know how the team will be because it's going to be like a different generation of a different roster right now than it will be in 2 years, because you have so many key players right now that are on this roster that will be done by that point.
Yeah, so big news for Idaho football and the future of the Vandal football program as a whole. We'll have to see how that shapes up over the next decade, but definitely some big news and probably the biggest press conference I have ever covered during my brief time as a journalist. But we'll move on to the women's Big Sky tournament. As far as tennis, the Vandals entered the tournament as the number 3 seed. They faced Eastern Washington earlier this morning, and they took home an opening 4-1 win over the Eagles. Head coach Mariana Cobra said, quote, "This was the best doubles we played all season. We've been focusing on doubles a lot in practice, and it showed. We played with a really, really good energy 1 through 3. Lucia Badillos and Mariana Petrie made easy work of their opponents with a 6-1 victory. Rita Bermudez and Maria Tavares followed suit with a 6-2 victory. And Idaho is now 14-2 when they win the doubles points. That's such a crucial aspect of the tennis game for the program. Now, looking at some of the singles results, Mariana Petrie just continued to roll in Big Sky Conference play. Defeated Janaea Smith 6-1, 6-4 from the number 1 court. Moria Hedberg of Eastern Washington defeated Rita Bermudez 6-1, 6-3 for the lone Eastern Washington point. And then these other matches, Celine Coates earned a 6-1, 6-4 victory over Erin Blessing, and Maria Tavares earned a 6-1, 6-1 victory over Carolina Lopez to clinch the victory. They play best out of the 7 points, so whoever gets to 4 first wins. So the number 3 court, Anna Batiri, and number 5 court, Belen Barcelona, they did not finish their matches. I'm assuming those probably would have been Vandal victories based on how those athletes have been playing the past.
Yeah, it's sometimes in a game of tennis, it's weird in terms that whoever gets the 4 points first, that ends. And in several instances, they just go all the way through. They let it finish. So I'm guessing in the tournament, they just go whoever gets the 4 first, that seals the deal. So.
Well, there would be no reason to keep playing at that point. I know in the season, there can be an argument made for the athletes to get experience and to just continue to play. And at this point, you want to rest up everybody you can for the later rounds, especially when you have to play in the first round. So I feel like that definitely played a role in that. Once it was clinched, they wanted just to stop the match to maintain some of the energy for tomorrow and keep the athletes in shape and that they won't be too tired heading into their match tomorrow. I believe they will face Sacramento State in the semifinals. That'll be tomorrow at 10 a.m. We will be tweeting the results of that, so follow our Twitter at Vandal Nation to get some updates on that. The men will also play tomorrow as well. They're the number 2 seed, so they got an automatic bye in the first round of the tournament. We still don't know who their opponent will be yet, but hopefully they'll be able to come away with a victory and earn a berth in the championship match of the tournament. If the Vandals are to win the semifinal match on the women's side, they would also be in the championship Sunday morning as well. So
yeah, a lot of stuff is happening. As right now, the tennis team seems like to be hitting her stride right now. both men's and women. So it could be a possible double championship for the Vandals, and I think it could happen. And not only that, and the possibility could happen, also get an NCAA berth, which the men's tennis, speaking of such, they have talked about that's where they want to ultimately go. They're hungry for it. When I wrote the piece, Coach Abita Barr told me that that's what they're aiming for. They said they're in a good position. They have been resting. They have been getting exposure to the Sacramento Sun right now. They kind of get accustomed to the game, and that's what kind of like their strategy that they're doing right now. So it's going to be interesting how they do tomorrow when they have their first matchup.
Now, there's also some other moves for the program, Idaho Athletics as a whole. The track and field program announced the signing of middle distance runner Emily Wesseling from Bilton in Canada. So we're going to have an international addition to the program. She has a personal best of 2 minutes, 14.5 seconds in the 800 meters, and 4 minutes, 38.02 seconds in the 1500 meter event. She placed 10th in the OFSAA Championships in the 1500 meters in 2015. Her personal best as a whole ranked her 17th in the 1500 meter in all of Canada for athletes under the age of 18, and 25th in the 800 meter for under 18 athletes in this country as well in the same year. She's also competed in cross country, placing as high as 21st in the OFSAA Championships. She also runs for Speed River Track Club out of Guelph, Ontario. Idaho Director of Track and Field Tim Colley said, quote, "We are thrilled to add Emily to our Vandal family. She is a talented middle distance runner who is pretty new to the sport. She has a big upside, and I believe we will do some great things here at Idaho." End quote. She intends to major in international studies at Idaho. So some more addition to the program. I think in the past week they've announced at least 4 or 5 signees. So Colley's doing pretty well as far as his recruiting class is concerned.
Yeah, he's going in all walks of life, whether here or in other places around the country, even around North America, even in some places around the world. Colley has been eyeing on those talent that could really further establish the Vandals team going into the future, especially when it comes to Big Sky Tournament competition, which is coming up in a few weeks for the track and field program.
Yep, that'll be very soon, and we'll also cover that. Quick side note for any Vandal fans who are hoping to catch the women's soccer doubleheader tomorrow in the Tri-Cities, that has been moved and rescheduled. Instead of playing a doubleheader, they will only be facing Central Washington. That will be at 12:30 p.m., and that will be in Ellensburg, Washington, instead of the Tri-Cities. So that we just wanted to make a note of that. It is corrected on our Twitter, and we hope to have that corrected to our story soon as well. Also, you can follow us on Twitter for the latest updates and anything regarding Idaho Athletics at vandalnation.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Vandal Nation, or on Instagram, The Vandal Nation, where you can see the latest work from our photographers and there's some of their assignments. We also have a Snapchat, The Vandal Nation. We hope to be utilizing that a lot more here in the final weeks of the semester, so you can see some inside access to practices, interviews, and anything else related to Idaho sports. And as always, pick up a copy of the Argonauts around campus or the Mosque community. Get some updates on some of our athletes and their stories, as well as some of the biggest news for the department as a whole, such as the move to the Big Sky Conference. We want to thank you guys for tuning in. We will be back Sunday from 11 a.m. to noon to kind of recap the weekend events. So please tune in for that. Also, we will be back here as well next Friday, 3:30 to 4. So that will be our final show of the semester. Wow, go figure. So I believe it will be. We'll have to see about that. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in. We will be back. As always, Vandal fans, have a safe weekend and enjoy your time in Moscow.
Yeah, until we meet again, and enjoy whoever's going to Final Fest. Enjoy it, even though it is 48 degrees and mostly cloudy. But till Sunday, have a good day.